Jordan's 34 points. Also today, the San Francisco 49ers have activated quarterback Joe Montana. They've waived former Rams star Wendell Tyler. The Chicago Bears have activated Doug Flutie, and former USC quarterback Paul McDonald has signed on with Dallas. In baseball, Boston's John McNamara is the American League Manager of the Year, and former Dodgers Steve Yeager is one of 6 veterans today to file for free agency. That's a look at sports this evening now. Let's go over to my buddy Dr. George with the weather. George.
It's good to be with you. I'm picking up all of the excitement from this man over here. All right, let's go and see what we've got. The low stratus is in already along the coast. It's in as far as Westwood already, but we believe that by midnight it should be all along the coast and into LAX by 3 o'clock. All right, looking around the area, mostly cloudy. Temperature 61 degrees, humidity 90%, and the wind is calm of all things, barometer 30-3. Today, we hit an 80. It got down to a 51, 55. Sunrise at 6:15, sunset just before 5 o'clock. Look at this picture, and you can see why. There's nothing out there. You can see the fog right along the coast, and it should stay there. Around the area, though, we've had very heavy rains out in Texas, 3 3/4 inches. Oklahoma City, 2 1/3, and rain and drizzle right on across of the middle Atlantic coast. Meanwhile, warm in California and Arizona. Delightful. There it is, fair and hazy tomorrow. That's our forecast right there. Working with Ted is a delight. You guys ought to try it sometime.
Hey, George, I heard what you said. You said the wind is calm, but I can assure you that yours isn't. When we return, Election 86, we'll have the latest results for you on the state Supreme Court race. The vote count on that.
Circuit City has so many wonderful electronic things all under one roof, it's hard not to get distracted.
Here's a bike calculator and my phone. My dad being with us?
Circuit City can really test your self-control.
Very nice. But a smart calculator is smart calculator.
The most up-to-date selection of brand names, all at Circuit City's guaranteed low prices.
So how could I resist?
Circuit City, the intelligent choice.
So you're on KCLA FM.
Yep.
But you don't talk much.
Nope.
You play great country music.
Yep.
But you don't talk much.
Nope.
Stereo country.
Yep.
But you don't talk much.
Nope.
Can you give us a sample? Hey, that's pretty good.
More music. That's cool. KCLA 93.9 FM. Whether you want a computer for your home or business, if you act now during Computerland's Red Tag Sale, you'll save money, and you'll save on the best. Computerland has drastically cut prices on IBM, Apple, Hewlett-Packard, all the big names. The Stem Iconic MD15 printer, the answer for superb letter quality or fast draft at 300 ppm. Exceptional paper handling and easy front panel control make the MD15 an office favorite. Come to Computerland's Red Tag Sale today before all the great buys go away.
You're going to love it.
As long as we're not late for the meeting.
This is going to whip us right there. I love it. What's it going to cost?
Don't worry, Joe. Give you a supervisor raise.
For weeks now, we've been listening to the pollsters talk about how the race for the Supreme Court of California was going to turn out. All of the pollsters were right. They said that Roseburg would be soundly defeated, and she has been. And that's the first. No other Supreme Court justice was thrown out of office as she was tonight with that heavy vote count. Let's take a look at those figures now as we have them. 30% of the precincts, a rejection rate, 68% to 31%. That says a lot. Roseburg was appointed by Jerry Brown in 1977 to fill the unexpired term of then Chief Justice Wright, the first woman and the most liberal on the court. And what did her in, apparently, is the fact that in 61 death penalty cases that came before her, she reversed them. Justice Joseph Brody, 30% of the precincts there. And, yes, 42%, no 57%. But we understand now from Steve Partner that this is too close to call. What you're looking at is only 30% of the precincts. But let me say this. This was another Jerry Brown appointee, a former presiding judge of the State Court of Appeal. He and Cruz Reynoso both tried to distance themselves from Rose Bird in the last days of the campaign. Cruz Reynoso there, 32% of the precincts counted. And once again, you would gather from this is going to be a rejection of Cruz Reynoso as well. All of them going down with Rose Bird, that is to say, 3 of 3 who were on the hit list, as you might say. But once again, too, we hear from Steve Partner, that's too close to call. Not in this case. Justice Stanley Moss, who was appointed in 1964 by then-Governor Pat Brown, was a former Attorney General, a former Superior Court judge here in Los Angeles. And despite the fact that he, too, has been considered a liberal on the court, despite the fact that he has only voted to reverse 10 of the death penalties that have come before him, it seems that Moss, unlike the others, doesn't have the taint that the others did, and that he will be reelected. Justice Malcolm Lucas, appointed in 1984 by Governor Dick Mason, a former federal judge of the Los Angeles District, with 30% of the precincts counted. He, too, with 78% to 21% of the vote, the most conservative court member, is assured of keeping his seat on the high court. Justice Edward Connelly, 30% of the precincts counted. He is considered a centrist on the court. He is an appointee of Governor Dick Mason, the presiding justice of the State Court of Appeal at one time out of San Jose. And we should tell you, too, that it looks like he is well established and will keep his seat without any problem. The only justice not up for confirmation is Alan Broussard, and he's not up until 1984. You notice there, if what looks like will happen, does happen, that is to say, if Bird, Reynoso, and Groden are put out of office, you are assured then that Governor Dick Mason will, having now 2 members on the court and 3 more, have it his way, pretty much.
And if he has it his way, Jerry, it'll be the first conservative majority in that court since way back in the 1930s.
Can't remember when.
If it happens. We'll be right back with more coming up, so stay with us.
At today's pace, you need to streamline your financial activities. Introducing Advantage Banking from Great American. Highly efficient services all designed to help you save money, move money, and make money with a minimum of time and effort. Discover Advantage Banking wherever you see Great American's distinctive red, white, and blue symbol. At a time when you need every financial advantage, Great American is soaring above the rest. Great American, your Advantage Bank.
Ah, it's that time of year. You run all over town. Clothes for the kids, things for the house, a new outfit for you, a color TV for them. But at the Broadway's Veterans Day sale, you can get all this at one place and save 20 to 50%. Furniture, housewares, fashions for the entire family, all at 20 to 50% off. Starting Thursday at 9 a.m. The Veterans Day sale. Discover why the Broadway is Southern California.
It's Wick Furniture's holiday sale. Save $600 on this elegant black lacquer 3-piece sectional sofa with brass trim, just $999.98. Save $300 on this 4-piece black polyester lacquer and brass bedroom set, only $899.98. Save 50% on this 5-piece oak and smoked glass dinette set, just $199.98. Plus no payments or finance charges until February 1987 with a Wick charge. Unexpected quality, spectacular savings.
Wick, surprisingly Wick.
Lee Trevino, I'm looking out for #1. First, look for the compact trucks that are #1 in sales. Toyota, look for the trucks that are #1 in truck satisfaction. Toyota, look for the trucks that have the power. Toyota, and the payload. You guessed it, Toyota. And look out for guys who can sink a 20-foot putt with a #5 tire. Who could ask for anything more?
Hi, Gary Owens now on KFI 640. You know, insegrievously, it's crackers to Drusty and Snide. Exclusively on KFI 640.
Summing things up very quickly now, Governor Duke Mason elected to a second term as governor of California. Senator Alan Cranston apparently on to a fourth term as the senator from California, one of them. Gray Davis, the Democrat, apparently elected state controller. Rose Byrd, the Chief Justice, has gone down to defeat, and Prop 61 and 64 have been defeated. That's it for this segment. We'll be back with more coming up right after this. Stay with us.
Number 1 in Southern California.
When you're here with me, my days glow, my nights move. You savor the moment, see color like no other, for my world was made to share. Ixtapa, we should be together.
Introducing the new 4-door Mitsubishi Mirage. Now it's even easier to get in on the fun. The new 4-door Mitsubishi Mirage. Patiently crafted for more door-to-door fun. Mitsubishi.
Here comes the Purelator Courier. There goes Purelator Courier. The Roadrunner works for Purelator Courier. We run rings around the Coyote Courier. Sending something to San Diego, Phoenix, or Fresno? Never fear. Use Purelator Near. Got to rush to New York, Houston, or Atlanta? Be a star. Use Purelator Far. For overnight delivery, call the Roadrunner at Purelator Courier. Dial 1-800-BEEP-BEEP. Your package is just a beep-beep away.
Tomorrow on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
My urge for and desires for men is totally opposite and different than my urge and desire for a woman.
Ken is your prince and you really are looking for a princess, and is the princess going to live with the both of you? When you found out that Gerald had AIDS, were you angry?
Half of all homosexual men do marry, and I think we have less good statistics on homosexual women.
Bisexual marriages on a very special Oprah Winfrey Show. Tomorrow at 3 and only on 7.
Channel 7, KABC TV, Los Angeles.
Good evening once again, and welcome to Eyewitness News Election 86 coverage. About 2 hours ago, a very emotional concession speech came from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Rose Byrd. We're going now by way of Mark Coogan to her headquarters for a wrap-up on that.
Well, Jerry, we know for certain that Governor Duke Mason will make at least one new appointment to the Supreme Court. It's too close to call as far as Justices Joseph Roden and Cruz Reynoso, but Rose Byrd already has conceded the issue of the death penalty, of course, overriding in this campaign. Paul Dandridge is at the state Supreme Court headquarters in Los Angeles. Let's go to Paul.
Mark, as you said, it was a very emotional moment here tonight. You could hear the Chief Justice's voice crack every once in a while. Certainly I could. Her concession speech, her statement, whatever you want to call it, certainly was done with dignity. And she stood by her decision on 61 out of 61 times to stand by the death penalty to try and overturn it, and which is what she did in those cases. She also said at one point something that we've heard many times during her campaign, and that is that the court is not a house of death.
Let me first say something to the millions of California voters who voted today to retain the justices on the Supreme Court, and who specifically voted for me. I want to thank you very much, because I know you believe very deeply in the ideal of justice and believe that it is possible to have it as a reality in this day and age. It is possible to have a house of justice, not a house of puppets, not a house of politicians, not a house of powerful interests, but in fact, a house of justice. And most importantly, not a house of death, but a house of justice.
She also said you have to stand by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and said that to her supporters, to stand by it, even though she may be gone. She will remain on the court as Chief Justice until January 5th. Alan Broussard, a member of the court, will take over at that point, it is expected. What happens between now and then? Well, the governor will, of course, look for a replacement. Certainly a more conservative type of judge is expected, to say the least. And there are many more cases that the Supreme Court still has to decide. So Roseburg may be gone as of January 5th, but there's 2 months of work ahead, and you cannot expect that her philosophy by any means will change. And there are death penalty decisions that will be made during those next 2 months. Reporting live from the Supreme Court, I'm sorry we've had so much here from the court. Paul Dandridge, let's go back to you, Mark.
Obviously, this was an unusual campaign because no justice has ever been turned out of office until tonight. But Roseburg was a political target for all 9 years since she was appointed, and finally it caught up with her.
Okay, thank you, Mark. We had 13 state propositions on the ballot this time around, everywhere from running the gamut from AIDS to toxics to English only. We are going to take a look now at some of those key races, starting with Proposition 60. The taxation replacement residences allows those 55 or over to sell their homes and buy another of comparable or lower value, to do that without getting hit by big tax increases under Prop 13. There's more, but it's too technical. It is obviously winning 30% of the precincts, 76% to 23% Proposition 60. Prop 61, the so-called GAN initiative, compensation of public officials, set the governor's salary at $80,000, limit the constitutional officers to $52,000, limit salaries of all others to $64,000, appointed officials, that is. And it would ban the accrued vacation and sick leave. A very controversial section there, and that probably spelled the difference. No 63, yes 36. The police chief, Darrell Gates, said he'd quit if this thing passed, and so did the fire chief, but it is 63-36. It is going down to defeat. Proposition 62, the last hurrah of tax crusader Howard Jarvis. It would require a 2/3 vote of the governing body, such as the city council, and a majority vote of the people before general taxes could be increased. Those taxes on general funds, such as hotel or utility users taxes, not property taxes. 34% of the precincts in so far, yes, 58, no, 41. Haven't called it, but it looks like this one's going to win, too. Prop 63, controversial English-only initiative, would make, of course, English California's official language and require the legislature to enforce with appropriate legislation and prohibit the legislature from passing laws which diminish or ignore the official language. It would allow also residents to sue if this wasn't done, critics saying that it might ban the bilingual ballots and bilingual education, but it's passive. Yes, 74, no, 25, 34% of the precincts reporting. Prop 64, the so-called LaRouche initiative, would declare AIDS an infectious, contagious, and communicable disease, would authorize the quarantine of AIDS victims and carriers of the virus, blood testing, and perhaps mean the firing of those carrying the virus and those with the disease from public places such as schools, restaurants, and medical facilities. It's losing badly, 69-30, 34% of the precincts reporting. Proposition 65, toxic discharge, to which Mayor Tom Bradley tied his coattails in the gubernatorial campaign. And look at that. It is losing. I'm sorry, it is not losing. It's winning 63% to 36%. 34% of the precincts reported. Require the governor to draw a list of chemicals, some 200, that cause cancer or birth defects, and set max permitted levels on those. Winning, I should say.
And that one is going to be a tough one to handle in the future, and we're going to talk more about that with Mark Coogan right now. Mark?
Well, a lot of the propositions were interesting, obviously. You had the English-only proposition. That had nationwide significance. The AIDS initiative, the first time voters anywhere have voted about AIDS in any form. And also Prop 65, as you mentioned, the Safe Drinking Water Initiative. In part, it was crafted by Democrats to help them against Republicans in this election, but it also was kind of a motherhood issue, too. Let's go to the Yes on 65, the Safe Drinking Water headquarters. Cynthia Allison is out there.
Well, we played a very positive role, but it's clear that the vast majority of people in California didn't buy the opposition's confused tactics and voted in favor of the proposition, and it was a sweet victory.
Well, I mean, we have the advantage of being listened to, you know. I mean, to use power to its advantage is great. And if we can be heard and we can help something like this toxic initiative, you know, to be passed, then what is, you know, our voices are being used for the proper reason.
Actually, 65
victory in this race. It's been a long night for about 5 people to play since about 8 o'clock tonight. These are the vestiges of those. And they've been buoyed on the strength of numbers like these. San Diego, 2-1. Orange, 2-1. No 164. Los Angeles, 2-1 against 64. Fresno, 3-1. San Francisco, 5-1. The Duquesne projection from the very beginning and the rejection of Rose Bird were two of very few issues that got booed here tonight. And of course, the projection that Alan Cranston would win was roundly cheered. But in a sense, there has been no contest here tonight. It has been jubilation and the resolve in the gay and homosexual community that next time around they will have something to vote yes on, having voted down Proposition 6 and now Proposition 64 here in the state of California. Ivy Bottini had something interesting to say. She's the state co-chairman for the No 164 campaign when she said, it seems a shame in retrospect that we have had to waste $3 million to fight a man like Lyndon LaRouche. The words of Ivy Bottini. Reporting live from the Hollywood Palladium No 164 headquarters, this is Larry Carroll. We had the opportunity to speak with one of the people who helped get Rose Bird knocked out of office, and his name is Don Floyd. He told me back in 1981 he co-founded a group called Crime Victims for Court Reform. He said at that time he was set up. He was sure a grassroots campaign would take off in this state. The goal was to unseat Rose Bird. Along the way, he said they had also targeted Cruz Reynoso and Joseph Grodin. Well, they pulled off what many consider to be perhaps something that could not be done. But it is a historic night here in California, and earlier I asked him exactly what he had intended to do if they didn't get the support they wanted. We will get to that in just a minute. Mike Curb, as I said, is coming into the hall right now. The latest results we have is that Curb and Leo McCarthy continue to run neck and neck. Curb had told Tawny Little a little bit earlier that he was reluctant to come down because he said he wasn't quite sure that he had a margin of victory that he would feel comfortable with. His supporters have been rallying here throughout the evening, and Mike Curb and his wife Linda have now gone to the rostrum. Let's listen in and hear what they have to say.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank all my supporters. You've just been wonderful throughout this entire campaign. It appears that we're here tonight to congratulate Leo McCarthy. It is based upon the returns I've seen. The indications are that Leo has won. The indications are that the entire Republican constitutional ticket probably will not win tonight, with the exception of our great governor. And I think we're all very thankful that George Deukmejian has been reelected. I think that's great for California. The tremendous work you did is something that we will never forget. We're deeply appreciative. In fact, I was thinking today about the various things that I'm thankful for. My wife and I were just talking about it this morning. We had such a wonderful opportunity to serve as Lieutenant Governor of this state, and this is a great state. In fact, this weekend when I had the opportunity to fly around California with Governor Deukmejian, and on Monday where we had the opportunity to be with President Reagan in Orange County, we had an opportunity to see just how beautiful the state is. The weather was wonderful, and we had a wonderful opportunity to meet so many of the wonderful volunteers who've worked so hard. But you know, during the time that I served as Lieutenant Governor, I had the opportunity to spend almost 300 days as the acting governor of this state. And it was kind of interesting. I was telling my daughter this morning, in fact, both of my daughters were born while Jerry Brown was out of state, while I was acting governor. So I think that's something that perhaps they'll be able to tell their daughters and sons and granddaughters. Also, I had the opportunity to be a part, while I was in office, of signing many bills and proclamations, including the Rob a Home Go to Jail bill, tough anti-rape legislation. And of course, I had the opportunity to be the first to sign the Crime Victims Bill of Rights. And that's something that certainly I will always remember. We also had the thrill of seeing things happen over the past 10 years that many of us never dreamed would happen. We were all part of the tax revolt. It started with Proposition 13, and with the election, of course, of Ronald Reagan as president. Most all of us had the opportunity to serve. I had a chance to be his state chairman 1 year and a chance to be his national vice chairman.
And then Mike Curb, who has conceded to Leo McCarthy, a man who he has been engaged in what has been considered one of the most bitter battles of the campaign here in California. Part of the low voter turnout has been attributed to the fact that many of the people in the state of California found much of the fighting between candidates in the various races to be something that they really didn't like at all. And this one had been a very difficult one. Leo McCarthy brought up a lot of things about Mike Curb's past. Curb turned around and countered with things about Leo McCarthy. Perhaps both of them have learned a lesson that the people of California look at the people, they look at the issues, and they'll decide on the strength of the person and perhaps on the strength of that person's political history. Mike Curb has been a successful businessman. He undoubtedly will continue in that effort. About 2 months ago, Mike Curb told me at that time that he thought he would win this office because his name recognition was still closely associated with that job, but it didn't work out for him. Reporting live from the Century Plaza Hotel, Harold Green, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
I'm Laura Diaz at the Hilton Hotel, where the party is winding down. You can see behind it that just about everybody has left at this point. Now, earlier in the evening, we had folks here who were against Prop 63. They were here to speak out against that issue. Proposition 63 would make English the official language of the state. It would allow residents and business people to sue if they felt in some way the English language had been diminished. It appears now that Prop 63 will pass. We saw those figures on the screen just a few minutes ago indicating that it could be a strong victory. Now, just moments ago, we talked to State Senator Art Torres, and this is what he had to say.
It's clearly aimed at Hispanics and Asians. That's been very clear from the campaigns in Miami and other parts of the country. But California was being used by Hayakawa and Stanley Diamond as a symbol to move forward in terms across the country. And it's really unfortunate. There's no effort being made to educate 4 million Californians of every ethnic persuasion, white, black, brown, red, yellow, who can't read or write in California today. That's not going to help us in terms of educating those folks and preparing them for the future.
If Prop 63 does pass, opponents are saying that they will fight it in the courts. I'm Laura Diaz reporting live from the Hilton in Los Angeles.
Laura, thank you. Let's go back for a second to Mike Curb's concession speech. Remember, he said that every member of the Republican state constitutional ticket except Governor Dick Mason looked like he was going down to defeat tonight. Now, on the other side of that coin, that means the Democrats are building up a terrific government in exile in Sacramento, if you want to call it. A lot of their frontline stars will now be state constitutional officers. Add Gray Davis to the list with Van de Kamp and McCarthy, perhaps, Unruh and Mark Fong-Yu. These are people with future ambitions with elections coming up, and they might make life pretty rough for George McMason in the next 4 years, and maybe for each other, too.
And so much for the theory that coattails do a lot for you. Not in the state of California. Nor across the country. It wouldn't seem so. The Senate now possibly in Democratic control, possibly, and with maybe 5 or 6 seats of a net gain. They look good in the House. President Reagan, yes. President Reagan's coattails weren't there either. I'll tell you something else we learned, too. We learned that the voters in California are independent. They passed Proposition 65. They defeated Tom Bradley. They defeated Rose Bird. They elected Leo McCarthy, who supported Rose Bird. We'll be right back with a look at more races in just a moment.
Some 35 years ago, this Mr. and Mrs. got themselves a family cat named Dreyfus and invested $10,000 in the Dreyfus Fund. You'll be delighted to know that today the $10,000 has grown to more than $580,000.
Sir? Madam? Dreyfus?
The Dreyfus Fund for growth and income.
I was 10 years old when I built my first model plane. I thought it was fantastic. Flew all of about 5 feet the first time out, but
That was enough. I knew then I wanted to fly forever. It's a feeling. It gets into your blood. And after 20 years of flying with Delta, it's still there. Hey, I may never get you to feel the way I do about flying, but sure would like to try.
Delta gets you there. You get you there with care.
Ah, it's that time of year. You run all over town, clothes for the kids, things for the house, a new outfit for you, a color TV for them. But at the Broadway's Veterans Day sale, you can get all this at one place and save 20 to 50%. Furniture, housewares, fashions for the entire family, all at 20 to 50% off, starting Thursday at 9 a.m. The Veterans Day sale. Discover why the Broadway is Southern California.
If you're going to spend over $12,000 for a Toyota, or a Honda, or a Volkswagen, or a Subaru, or a Nissan, do you realize you can also afford the front-wheel drive, the tight sports car handling, the logical engineering, and driving experience of a Saab 900?
See your Southern California Saab dealer.
We've known since 7 minutes past 8 this evening when ABC called it, and later reaffirmed by Steve Kleckner, our pollster, that Cranston was the winner over Ed Shaw in California. We haven't heard from Mr. Shaw this evening with any concession speech, but all of us are thinking, how did this happen? We've got two expert analysts with us right now, Bruce Hutchinson and John Tenney. They can probably tell us some of the reasons, and frankly, when you look at the Shaw-Cranston race, you have to ask yourself some questions. Shaw had difficulty getting with the conservatives early on. Then he tried to turn to the right, as Paul said earlier, and that didn't work. But some of the difficulty was pretty easy to understand. He had voted against President Reagan's programs about 30%, maybe 40% of the time. He voted against the MX. He called for reductions of the SDI program. All of those things might have been contributing factors, but were they, Bruce and John?
First, I'm not willing to write off the race. Every raw number I've seen still shows Ed ahead.
That just changed, Bruce.
The raw numbers
The raw numbers have changed.
Have they?
Yeah.
All right. And secondly, it was an uphill fight from the very start, and it would have been with anybody because you're talking about an incumbent who was there for 17 3/4 years, and Alan Cranston had great popularity in this state. He still enjoys that. That's obvious. And it was an uphill fight, but I think that Ed fought it well, and I'm still not willing to concede that that's a lost election.
But wasn't he supposed to be vulnerable this time around, John?
I think that a lot of people thought that Senator Cranston would be vulnerable because he's been there for 18 years, and Californians traditionally like to have a change of faces. As a matter of fact, there's only been 2 senators in history that have served in California 3 terms. Cranston would be the first senator to serve 4 terms. I think that the reason that, one of the main reasons that Cranston won is that he ran a masterful campaign. He kept Ed Shaw off balance all the time. Right after the primary election, he went heavily on television on the flip-flop issue, put Mr. Shaw on the defensive. Congressman Shaw never was able to get off the defensive in the entire campaign. He did not have the conservative base because, as Jerry mentioned, he had on occasion voted against the president's program. And during the battle in the primary, Bruce and Bobby Seale and others hit him pretty hard on not being supportive of the president. And so I think he never was able to really get that conservative base. And therefore, Cranston, who had been there for a long time, everybody knew where he stood, everybody knew what he was all about, was able to carry it off. A great campaign that Cranston ran. I think one of the best that's been run in California history.
Well, I obviously would have to disagree with that. Perhaps it's a successful campaign. I disagree with the idea of using negative ads, and he used the negative ads from the very outset, from the day that Ed won the nomination. There were negative ads against him, and it was a very tough battle.
You know, Bruce, one of the things that I don't understand is that why Congressman Shaw didn't go after Senator Cranston on the spending issue, which is an issue that Californians really react to, and the GAN initiative, and with the Jarvis initiative. Why he didn't attack him as you would expect that he would have on that issue. And why he didn't attack him on the defense issue, because that was something with the large defense industry. Senator Cranston has been for a more modified defense industry. The way I feel.
Okay.
Why didn't he attack him on that issue?
It's always easy to look in retrospect and say, if this didn't work, then this would have. I don't know. We don't know. I know that he waged a very tough campaign. It was known from the outset that it was going to be an uphill battle, and it was an uphill battle.
But he never clarified his attack against Senator Cranston. That was the thing that amazed me. And I think that if you're going to knock off an incumbent, you've got to have a very clear focus. And I think that he could have waged a very effective campaign. I'm not saying he was going to winning campaign, but on Senator Cranston's being more liberal in his economic policy and being more liberal in his defense posture, being against the MX, being against some of the president's spending programs on defense. But he never focused an attack on those areas. I'm sure you would have. As a matter of fact, I heard you in our debate, not a debate, our questioning of Senator Cranston. You went right after him on those issues. I'm not saying they'd have been winning issues, but Sal never did it.
Well, he focused on those issues that he thought were the best to focus. And as I say, you can always look in retrospect, but you have to be farsighted and try to look ahead, and can't do that. You said that the raw numbers are now showing
Cranston has just passed Ed Shaw in the raw numbers.
Maybe we can.
I wonder if we have those. Can we toss those up?
Fellas,
Is that possible? No, the other thing.
There they are right there, Jerry.
38% of the precincts counted there. Cranston now 50% and Shaw 49%. Still very close, but there has been a movement all evening long with Cranston catching up to those early figures that Ed Shaw garnered. It seems strange to me that Rose Bird was trounced because of her position on the death penalty. Let's face it, that was the crux of her being put out of office.
Yes.
Alan Cranston is not in favor of the death penalty. Ed Shaw is in favor of the death penalty.
The independence of the voters.
That's right. And Rose Bird, Cranston, refused to take a position on that and took a position on other states' propositions, but not on that. And Ed Shaw was very strong in his opposition to Rose Bird. So something more than the obvious is there. John, do you know what that is?
Well, I don't think that the people of California are going to decide a Senate race on the basis of whether or not a person is for the death penalty. Whereas in the case of a Supreme Court justice who on 60-some-odd occasions has found an excuse to overturn a death penalty, they will. I think it's just that simple. I think they look to a senator for broad economic policy, for international policy,
nuclear arms policy,
nuclear arms policy, and the Democrats, I think, across the nation are winning the Senate. I mean, they've won in Louisiana, they've won in Florida, they've won in Maryland, they're apparently going to win in Washington. So, in other words, there's people that are saying that the country is going to the right, and that the Republicans are involved in a party realignment. I think they're dead wrong.
No, let me just interrupt, because there I would disagree. I think one of the strengths of President Reagan and his philosophy is mirrored in the fact that there was no great national issue. That is a compliment to the president himself. There was no national debate. Even FBI, which was debated so heavily, suddenly became nonpartisan. Paul Kirk, the head of the Democratic National Committee, said that it's now nonpartisan. That was after the president came back from the summit in Reykjavik, because it has obvious popularity in the country. So I think the fact that these issues have been decided on more state levels and local levels rather than national is a compliment not only to the president, but to his philosophy. Very quickly, Democratic majority in the Senate. Any big difference, Bruce?
Yes, John?
Yes, I think it will make a difference. The president has had a rough time, even with the Republicans in control of the Senate. It's going to be rougher now.
Listen, John, I don't think there's any doubt about it that after what we saw tonight in Congress, what's happening there, though the Republicans have picked up some seats in the House, they have lost in the Senate appreciably. But one thing is certain, Paul, John, Bruce, that the 88 campaign for the presidency started tonight.
You bet it did. And the president is now really a lame duck. I mean, he has really been hurt. He's going to have to compromise with the Democrats on economic policy, on defense policy, on spending policy.
How about aid to the country?
On aid to the country, you bet.
No, I bet.
Well, I'll tell you what, gentlemen,
FBI.
Bruce, yeah. No, the president, I believe, has those basic issues that he is so strong that he'll even take an override of his veto. We just saw that. Aid to the Contras is #1 on his list,
SDI is a tie for number one.
All right. Gentlemen, we thank you very much, by the way, both of you. Democratic majority in the United States Senate, Democratic majority in the State Assembly in California, the State Senate. Is that going to change? If so, how much? We'll find out as we look at state races in just a moment.
Books cost too much, so I opened Crown Books. Now you'll never have to pay full price again. We have over 10,000 books to choose from. Whirlwind by fascinating James Clavell, a saga in the tumultuous days after the Shaw fell, just $13.77. And author of the acclaimed Brotherhood of War brings to life the men of the Marines in Corps, just $2.37. Crown's one place you can't judge a book by its cover, price. So remember, if you paid full price, you didn't buy it at Crown Books.
This could be the fall you fall for Eastern Airlines Caribbean. Prices have dropped. The crowds have disappeared. So there's no better time to fall for our 18 destinations throughout the Caribbean and the Bahamas. Eastern's Nassau, for example, is just $379 per person, complete with hotel and round-trip coach airfare. Call your travel agent or Eastern for complete details. Love may last forever, but our fall prices won't.
Well, the thing is, lots of financial institutions will tell you how big and how safe they are. We think our customers deserve a lot more than just a safe place to put their money. One thing they deserve, for example, is having higher interest rates on higher balances. At California Federal, we came up with an account that does just that, and it's called tiered savings, keeping our customers' money safe and giving them a good return on a dollar. That's what CalFed means when it talks about well-managed money.
This week at 4.
We're in a computer age, and I think scientific research on animals is the horse and buggy days of science.
Over 20 million animals are used for research each year. Scientists say it's for our own good.
I feel that research using animals is essential.
But is it all necessary?
We don't have to continually torture animals.
Ann Martin reports on pet research this week on Eyewitness News at 4, only on 7.
Bisexual marriages, tomorrow at 3, only on 7.
We're going to take a look now at some of the State Assembly seats that are up for grabs. All 40 of them are, as a matter of fact, or I should say 80, and 20 of the 40 Senate seats are up. Bear in mind now, the Democrats hold a 47 to 33 margin in the State Assembly. They also hold a margin in the Senate, and we'll take a look at some congressional races, too, where the Democrats hold a margin. First of all, let's take a look at the 21st Congressional District. This is Bobby Seeley's old seat. Of course, she left to run for the Senate, lost in the primary to Ed Shaw. 46% GOP, 43 Democratic. Simi Valley Mayor Elton Delegli is, way out in front. Republican 71 to 28%. He surprised a lot of people with his primary win over the son of Bob Hope, Tony Hope, the primary. Delegli went on in the general and is now winning it, as you can see, over his opponent, Gilbert Saldana, who's a city councilman from Avalon and Catalina. 27th Congressional District. It stretches from Santa Monica down the coast of Hermosa, includes Brentwood and Venice. It's a rerun between Levine and Scribner. They went at it again 2 years ago. Levine, the incumbent, 2 terms. He is leading, the Democratic incumbent, leading 60 to 39 over Rob Scribner, who, of course, is the former football player for UCLA and for the Rams. Looks like Levine's headed for his 3rd term. 36th Congressional District. 58% of the precincts reporting. This is Riverside, San Bernardino County. Democratic incumbent George Brown Jr. He's been in Congress for 22 years. Now, the GOP thought they had a chance here in this one to upset the incumbent. Apparently not. The GOP candidate, Bob Henley, a businessman from Tilton, is going down to defeat, although not a big...